Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Today I'm reacting to Ancient Wisdom in Modern Times. Deepak, Chopra, and Sadhguru. I don't know why I wanted to say Chapor. Moderated by Miss Chandrika Tandon. Man, I am terrible at saying names. Anyways, I've not seen this before. This was a request. If you have a request, please leave it in the comments below. Please leave the title, the channel, and the length. That way I can search for it. Because if you put the link in the chat, YouTube might put it for held for review. And I won't be able to see it, so you can put the link if you want, but if it gets put in held review, you can't blame me for that. And let's go ahead and get started.
It's a real privilege to be here. And what's interesting is that both these amazing people, I hesitated for a moment before calling them people because they have such dimensions to them. But both of them have come to this whole topic of wisdom from very different perspectives. Dr. Chopra comes at this as a doctor, as a scientist, and a very eloquent seeker, and has sort of given us so much to think about, coming at it from a scientific basis and then moving into many more theories and thoughts. Sadhguru comes at it as a mystic, as somebody who has been, who has sort of seen some of the unknowable and has come to us with a whole bunch of knowledge from that angle. But essentially the three broad perspectives they say, and that's just to set a context and then we can get into the questions, is number one, they say, look, you have to look at the world through a different prism. You have to change your whole prism through which you view your own life, is a broad theme. The second broad theme, if you like, and it ties all back into modern wisdom, the second broad theme is that if you were able to do that, you would have unimmeasurable benefits for the body, and Dr. Chopra has been the expert in talking about the body, and Sadhguru as well. For the mind, because how you experience life is who you are, and then that creates a ripple effect because it makes...
How you experience life is who you are? I don't know if Sadhguru would agree with that, because who you are is unchanging. Your thoughts change according to non-duality, but who you are never changes no matter what happens to you in life. Let me rewind that. Let me make sure I understood her correctly. And I was looking at Sadhguru's face whenever she made that statement. Okay, right here. So about the body and Sadhguru as well. For the mind,
because how you experience life is who you are. And then that creates a ripple effect because it makes you better people. And then you could create a better planet. So that's theme number two. And then
I think she's wrong on that one. Let me know if I'm wrong on that one. Yeah, you who you are is never tainted.
Theme number three is to do that, you have to do a whole lot of things. This is not something that just happens easily. You have to go through a lot of rigorous discipline, and you need a science and technology to get there, essentially. And that science and technology comes in the form of yoga, and different forms of yoga, different forms of inner engineering, and self-inquiry, self-knowledge, self-discipline, and so on, that Dr. Chopra talks about. So there's many, many techniques. So these are three broad themes. Has your own thinking changed over the last... I mean, you both have been talking about variations of this topic for a very long time. Could you just tell us, has that changed a lot? Can you both take that question?
I had to wait till she got to a stopping point. Like, yeah, when she said technology, I'm like, no, you don't need technology to do yoga. At least as far as I know, it's just, you just need I'm assuming at least a quiet place that you can focus and not be distracted by anything. But I don't know, I guess technology in terms of like a what do you call that, rooms? Sensory deprivation rooms, I believe, where there's no sound, no nothing. You can literally hear your own heartbeat in there.
First of all, thank you for that amazing invocation. You really created the atmosphere here. And it's a great honor to meet you again, Sadhguru, after all these years. I remember playing Frisbee with you in Puerto Rico. And
That's
of course,
awesome.
Dr. Jaraman, one day I will be like you. Okay. So yeah, my thinking has changed in the sense that when I started moving out of mainstream so-called scientific thinking, I was trying to establish in my mind the connection between mind and body. And over the last 4 decades, I have realized, which has been obvious to great sages throughout the centuries, that there's no system of thought that can access truth or reality, whether it's a scientific system of thought or a mathematical system of thought, or these days we talk about quantum physics. None of these systems of thought can give us the experience of reality, because reality is beyond thought. Reality is inconceivable to the mind. These systems of thought, even scientific systems of thought, create models of reality. Not reality, but models of reality. And we have faith in them because once we understand the model, we can create technology. So we can create jet planes and bombs and mechanized death and internet and all.
Ouch, mechanized death. It's true, though. And I was thinking, it's like, well, looking at it from a non-dualistic perspective, it's true what it's saying. Looking at it in, I guess, in my perspective with non-duality is the fact that scientists can only prove okay, so this is Maya. Scientists can only prove things in Maya. We're looking at it from a non-duality perspective. So basically, Maya has this set of rules that we all must follow. I think, again, I'm theorizing here, because if this is in fact true, that this is all in fact Maya, there are still there's rules in Maya. We can't obviously fly without having anti-gravity or jetpacks or planes. You know, there's no way we can just all of a sudden fly. So there are still rules within Maya, and science is trying to figure out those rules, and with those rules develop technology to do things like fly with airplanes. So with technology, we find out the rules of Maya, and then with those rules, we develop technology, like what it's saying, basically.
The wonderful thing. So we think science gives us access to reality, but even science is an activity in something that is not mind, that is not matter. Mm-hmm. For lack of a better word, it's a field of awareness. What the great sages call Brahman. And the universe is a modified form of that. Your mind, your body, and the universe out there is all conceived, constructed, governed, and the becoming of a non-local, inconceivable, dimensionless reality which is not in space and time. Now, this is very difficult for the modern person to grasp, okay? But it's actually part of since we're talking about ancient wisdom traditions, if you read the Yoga Vaishishta, it says that which cannot be seen but without which there's no seeing. That which cannot be perceived but without which there's no perception. Cannot be imagined but without that which there is no imagination, creativity, insight, intuition, choice. Everything that we call reality comes from an inconceivable, dimensionless, non-local domain which is not in space-time. So, you know, when Lord Krishna talks about it, water cannot wet it, wind cannot dry it, weapons cannot shatter it, fire cannot burn it, it's ancient, it's unborn, it's not subject to death. Now that's inconceivable to the mind, but it's experiential when you settle into awareness, when you settle into being, when you settle into existence, what is called Satchitananda or Tattvamasi, and you saw the video where he expressed his experience. That's not an intellectual experience. That is a transcendent experience. I'll stop there.
Sadhguru, you come at it from knowing. Tell us how your own thinking has changed, how your own knowledge has changed.
I mean, I cannot say much about thought because I don't have much thought.
Oh, no, no.
This may sound like an oxymoron for people, but the fact of the matter is, most of the time I don't have any thought in me. For me, the phenomena of life that's happening within me always overwhelms everything else. Thought occurs to me only when I want to physically do something, arrange something around me. Otherwise, days on end will pass for me without a single thought. So, maybe I never grew up. In a way, yes, because when it comes to… people ask me, what has been your sadhana? My only sadhana has been that right from my childhood, I never got identified with anything. Either the family, or the culture, or the religion, or the society, or various other things happening around you, including your parentage, your siblings. I was involved with them, but never identified with anything. If human intelligence does not tie itself down with identity, every human being will realize the nature of life. Human intelligence is capable of figuring this. When I say intelligence, as Deepak pointed out, it's beyond the thought process. Unfortunately, because of the type of education systems we have today, we are completely committed to one dimension of our intelligence, which we call as the intellect, which is just the thought process. Thought can only happen with the data that you have gathered through five senses, which is very limited, one thing. Another thing is, the nature of data that the senses gather are only useful for survival process. The very nature of…
Sorry. I mean, he said that many times before, Sadhguru, about our senses for survival process. For some odd reason, I thought of Darwinism, and somehow something clicked there where… I mean, I've always understood that, but not to like this point, where the fact that the reason why we are on the top of the food chain is because of everything that we are put us up there. Our abilities are intelligent, basically. Intellect, let me put it that way. Our intellect put us on the top of the food chain. And that doesn't necessarily mean there's no one else equal to our food chain. You know, animals can eat us too, and we are weaker, but because of our intellect that we are able to develop weapons and tools to survive. But yeah, I don't know why it's just now, even though he said that a few times, that our senses, our five senses, including our intellect, is what… it's just all good for survival. It genuinely is. Nothing more than that. Huh. Wow, okay. Our five senses and our intellect. That includes our strength too, by the way, and whatever agility and all these other things are just great for survival, but not for living life. I mean, that's… survival is part of life. You got to get that out of the way first, and then you can, you know, cherish life, which Sadhguru has said. I do believe he has said that, because, you know, once we got survival out the way, now we can start living life. Huh.
How you see things, how you hear, smell and taste and touch life is only relevant for survival process. If you wanting to know the life itself, then these instruments of perception are no good.
Yeah.
Even what is light and darkness is a debate between you and another creature which sees darkness as light, isn't it? If you sit with an owl and start an argument as to which is light and which is darkness, it's an endless argument, but who do you think is right?
Both.
Hello? If you're saying both, you're either in the diplomatic corps or you have a successful marriage.
Well, I'm neither, so where the hell do I fall into this? Oh, diplomatic, maybe. Well, I mean, okay, no.
You have learned to say both, but which is the truth? What I see is the truth, or what the owl sees is the truth?
It's a matter of perspective, though. That's why they're both true.
That's not the point. It is just that nature has opened up our sense perception as it is necessary for our survival. Accordingly, it has opened up sense perceptions for different creatures as it is necessary for their survival. But if survival is all you're seeking, this is good enough, the five senses. But once you have come as a human being, somehow survival is not good enough. If your stomach is empty, there's only one issue about food. But once the stomach becomes full, you have 100 issues going on. So the nature of the human being is such, no matter what you do, you want to be something more than what you are right now. And if that something more happens, something more, it's an endless pursuit. So somewhere, a human being is seeking a limitless expansion, but trying to do it with physical means. The very nature of physicality is a defined boundary. If there is no defined boundary, there is no possibility of physical happening in the universe. But now, a human being is longing for the boundless, that too in installments and through physical means. Through the boundary, you're trying to become boundless. The desire is fantastic, the method is hopeless. Because the moment you identify yourself with something, your intellect's work is just to protect that identity. If whatever the identities of nation or family or gender or race, religion, whatever, the moment you identify yourself with something, your intellect will only function around that to protect that. So, it is a certain type of prejudice the moment you're identified. So, the only thing I did with my life is, I never identified myself with anything.
Makes me wonder about myself. I do identify with stuff, but I don't use it as a weapon, however. I use it as a talking point, or something to be interested in. Or if you're bored, just to talk about it. But yeah, I mean, like, I don't know, there's a lot of… I'm speaking of Americans as far as I can tell, maybe even just Western countries too. But there are people out there who so strongly identify with something that if you don't recognize their identification, all hell breaks loose. And also that one identification matters so much to them that that is the only thing they can identify as and nothing else. And what I mean by that is their identity as a person is that one thing, not anything else. And because of that one thing you don't recognize, they get mad at you when they are more than just that one thing as a person. There are sometimes, don't get me wrong, sometimes that identity is of value to a person, but to get angry at someone for it, that's just a whole different story. And I think that is obviously what Sadhguru is talking about, is to get so angry whenever someone doesn't recognize your identity of one thing. And even if they don't recognize your identity on everything, I mean, to get mad, you're just making yourself frustrated. Just either ignore the person, move on with your life. You know, it's no big deal, just keep on moving.
And life just exploded within me in ways that thought seems so puny that I do not indulge in thought most of the time.
You know, what you're saying, for all of us here, in some way, shape or form, we all pride ourselves on thinking human beings. This is a tough pill to swallow.
Thinking is just recycling of the data that you already gathered.
Going green.
So, what is the leap of faith that you go from this perspective of thinking and thoughts to we don't belong to anyone, you know, we are not identified with any instrument, with any sort of localness? And I know both of you have spoken about that.
The thing is, this is not something that people will not get. They will get this. This is not some great teaching I'm telling you. If you get it right now in your life will transform in ways that you can't imagine possible. Otherwise, someday you will get it from the maggots. You will understand you don't belong to anything. So, the entire culture of what you're calling as Bharat is about Vairagya. The word Vairagya means… Rag means color, Vairag means beyond color. But if you say colorless in English language, it is a very negative connotation of being colorless. Let's put it as transparent. Because it's transparent, it can take on the color of anything right now. Right now, if my background is red, I'm red. If it's yellow, I'm yellow. I'm picking the colors from you, okay?
Thank you, I appreciate it. Well, blue and gold aren't bad either. Dr.
Well,
did you have something to add to that?
Just to elaborate on what he said. You're listening to us here. Now, just for a moment, turn your attention to who or what is listening. What he experiences being, right? Another word for awareness or existence. It's not a thought. Thought is what creates the subject-object split. Being is all there is, and being is not a thought. Okay, so as even now, if I asked you, are you aware?
I am aware.
That's being. Now everything else is just a modulation of that. It's a feeling or a thought or a sensation or a perception. We call that the mind, we call that the body, we call that the universe. But all there is being and its modulations. Because what you experience is sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts, and then you say, oh, that's a tree, that's a body, that's a universe, that's a rock. There are just different combinations of being and its modulations. So,
did you all understand that? Thoda sa, some. It's a very… and I think this is part of the complexity I think we all struggle with.
Because you try to explain it in words. But again, as you're listening, turn to who is listening.
Well, it's not necessarily trying to explain it in words. I think, well, in my opinion anyway, it's just because no one has thought about it in this way, more so than anything. If you've never thought about something… if you've never thought about something in a particular way, you will not understand it because the experiences you have throughout life has never told you that. So that's something completely new. So that's kind of like an infant or someone… it's like an infant that has no knowledge of what fire is. You have no concept of it and you don't know what it can do. So you start learning about it and then you can understand the concept of what fire is or what he's talking about in terms of his concept. I think that's more so than the words necessarily, because I understand the words, but understanding the concept is a little bit different, especially when I first got into learning to non-duality. I didn't understand it at first, especially the spirit in the rock thing. I thought that guy was crazy when I first watched it a long time ago, and the second time I watched it after watching some wisdom videos, I then understood the concept he was talking about. It made more sense. Again, it took a lot of videos for me to understand the concept of it.
And I think, Dr. Chopra, the interesting question is, and Sadhguru, this is for you as well. Essentially, what we are doing in this whole process of asking all of us to change the prism is you're essentially asking us to experience it in some way.
Yeah, he said the mistake of the intellect. It's the mistake of the intellect,
yes,
that there is separation between observer and observed. Because the observer and observed as mind and body are a single holistic activity of the total universe.
And if you go back, I think in the earlier session, there was quotes from the Gita, and I know you all, and you've spoken about that as a Sadhguru, about, and so the
I
whole…
have
Not now, but
Not
basically, but oh, I'm sorry, then it was, Dr. Chopra, you had spoken about the different forms of the different forms of yoga that have been, the Raja Yoga, the Bhakti Yoga, the path of devotion, and we know that it's been spoken about in the Gita. So what's so difficult? What is the barrier that people haven't seen it yet? It seems, in a way, it's an experience. It seems, it seems obvious at one level, and it's yet very difficult to grasp on the other.
I've said that so many times, and that is so true. It is genuinely simple, but just so difficult to accomplish. Just so weird to say, oh, it's very easy, but difficult. A contradiction there. But yes, I've said that, and it's so true though, and I'm glad someone else said that too.
Could you just talk to us about what
For
the barriers
some
are?
of us who were brought up, educated in a scientific worldview or in a worldview that emphasizes recycled information, as you said, or all of that, it's very difficult to intellectually get to being because we identify, as he said, with our perceptual experience, with our intellect, with our mind, with our ego identity. So it always seems a struggle till one day you stop struggling and you're there. And as he said, he never identified with anything. Once you identify with a thought or with a perception or with what you think is a knowing or a sensation or an emotion, then you're in time. Thought is in time, but being is not in time.
Sadhguru, your thoughts?
I mean, I'm completely spiritually uneducated. I don't know from where I have quoted. I have not quoted generally, except the grandmother Gita that's around us. I have to admit that I have neither read the Gita, nor the Vedas, nor the Upanishads, nor even the Yoga Sutra. I've never studied anything. The most profound literature that I read, I read English literature just for fun because I like the language. Otherwise, the most profound stuff that I read is asterisks.
Is what?
Is what?
Asterix comics, yeah.
Because why I'm saying this is, this is what it is. For example, a modern scientist is trying to mathematically deduce the reality. Everything has to fit in to his math, and he will deduct everything and say the entire universe is one. But it's not in his experience. A religious person will say, God is everywhere, so everything is one. But it's not yet in his experience. He believes. One is making deductions, another is believing. A yogi is a hard nut who doesn't believe anything, who doesn't want to deduce anything. Unless it becomes real within him, it's not real for him. So, because of this approach, I never found the need to read anything spiritual. If I read something, it may be a news magazine or literature or something else, but never anything spiritual, because I never wanted to clutter my own clarity with anything outside. And the only and only thing I know is, I know this piece of life from its origin to its ultimate, and that's all.
Wow, that's weird to say. At least coming from him, to say the yogas. Oh God, I can't say it. Upanishad. I don't think I said that correctly. He's never read any of them, and to say that he doesn't want to read them because he doesn't want to clutter his mind. Wow. That is something to say. I mean, a lot of people, sorry, let me reposition my legs there. Let me say, there are some people out there who read that, use that as a guidance, and I guess so. I still wouldn't mind reading them, or I don't know about reading, but audiobooks.
Because you know this piece of life, by inference, you seem to know everything else. Today there is a a certain theory coming out, which is called as the constructional theory. What they're trying to say is, whether you take an amoeba or a human being, whether you take the atomic or the cosmic, the fundamental design is same. It is just the sophistication and the complexity is multiplying. So if the fundamental design is same, if you want to know the entire universe, you just have to know this. And this is the only thing that's available to you, accessible to you. When I say this is the only thing available and accessible to you, see, right now you believe that you can see me sitting here, but that's not the fact of the matter. The fact is, light is falling upon me, reflecting, going through your lenses, inverted image in the retina, you know the entire story. So if you see me only within you. If you hear me only within you.
He said, a few other Swamis and Gurus have said this, and I even explained it as well as understanding it, like we're also seeing the past. We're only ever seeing the past, hearing the past, experiencing the past. We're never… I will not say that. I will not say we're never experiencing the present. The only way you can experience the present is through your own Turiya. I definitely need to formulate that a little bit better. But generally the five senses are always only ever experiencing the past. It's never the present. I mean, that's not saying a lot though. Because whenever you're talking to someone, literally whenever they open up their mouth and the vocals come out, that's already a couple of milliseconds late. You're not hearing it right then and there. You are hearing it in the past. That's just nitpicking though. I don't know if that even has anything to do with anything, but it's true though. It's kind of mind-blowing to think that you're only ever experiencing the past. At least to me it was. Or is still.
Whatever ever happened to you, light and darkness happens within you, pain and pleasure happens within you, joy and misery happens within you, agony and ecstasy happens within you.
And that is experienced in the present. I think. Yeah, I think so.
Right now if I touch your hand, you think you're experiencing my hand. No. You're only experiencing the sensations in your hand. Or in other words, the entire human experience is happening within you. The very seat of your experience is within you. What is happening within you, at least you must be able to determine. What is happening within you must happen the way you want it. If what happens within you happens the way you want it, suddenly your ability to create what you want to happen in the world also is tremendously enhanced. Not because you know the world, because you know this. This is why realization was held as the biggest thing. You must understand it's realization, it's not an achievement, it is not an attainment, it's a realization. Realization means it's always there. I was stupid enough not to see it, suddenly one day I saw it. That's what realization means. Never we said any inner things or accomplishments or achievements, they are not any kind of peak climbing. It's just a realization, it's always been there. It was always been there to see. So everybody is quoting Gita, let me also quote. At some point it seems Arjuna asked, I don't know, it's been whether made up by somebody, it's really in Gita, please correct me if it is so. It seems Arjuna asked that, where is this truth that you're talking about? This intangible, unperceivable truth, where is it? It seems Krishna laughed and said, it's at the tip of your nose. Now there are many schools of yoga which are intensely focusing on the tips of their noses and getting headache. Try and see. What he is trying to say is, it is the most obvious thing. The most obvious thing, if you pay attention to your existence, not to your thought, not to your emotion, not to the arrangements of life that you've made around you, if you pay attention to the nature of your existence, it is the most obvious thing. It's at the tip of your nose is a metaphor in India that it is the most obvious thing. But by focusing on the tip of the nose, enlightenment will not happen, headache is guaranteed.
So picking up on Sadhguru's point, Dr. Chopra, so what is scientific inquiry in this, with this construct, which is, hey, it's realization, it is a
Okay,
knowing, and what,
You know,
and so
Sadhguru
two
is
questions.
one of the few lucky ones. I've known two other people who said what he said, that, and thank God I never read anything. One was Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. He used to always say, thank God I never read anything because it would have cluttered my mind. And the other was Krishnamurti. He would say the same thing. That, you know, the more you read, the more you clutter your mind. And he also would say, I've never read anything.
That, what was that? That would contradict the Advaitas, did it not? Because their belief, their source of fact is based on multiple things. We talked about that, about the 6 schools of Hinduism, or 6 philosophies of Hinduism, at least the 6 major ones, I believe. There was one school that believed purely on experience and nothing else. And I can't remember if I talked about it or not, but the problem with that is the fact that knowledge cannot be passed, because what you experience is only ever useful to you. And if you express that experience to someone else, they cannot believe it because they personally have not experienced it. And that's also if you've written down your knowledge, like, oh yeah, this snake is poisonous, this is a pen that I'm writing with, the color red is blue. You know, you show that to someone, it's like, oh, I can't believe that, because, you know, I have to experience it for me to know that's true. Even though the person that wrote it down wrote it as fact, and in fact it's true because he himself or she herself has experienced it, cannot be taken as fact. So that's what I do believe the oh god, I'm terrible. I need to start saying that word, Upanishad and the Gitas and the Yogi Sutras are written words, and they've never read it because they didn't want that to, in a sense, taint their thoughts or experience. Are they? I guess they don't follow Advaita, I believe, if I'm correct. I guess they don't. Do they not follow that, or I'm not sure. They seem to follow. At least Sadhguru seems to follow the. I'm sorry, I'm terrible at remembering stuff. But the school that believes in personal experience only, so far as I can tell. Maybe he listens as well. Like, instead of reading the text, maybe he's listened to other people speak about that and then considers what they say. Let me know if I'm wrong or right on that. Like, I don't know. Sadhguru has never talked about maybe which philosophy of Hinduism he follows. He talks more about personal experience. I do believe maybe Osho did the same thing. I didn't realize Krishnamurti did that as well. Then again, I watched a few of his videos. I definitely need to do some more. And every time I think about him, I think about how so excited he is whenever he talks to the crowd, and he just keeps saying, "Is that right? Is that right? Is that right?" He wants the crowd to get involved, which is really cool. And whenever someone answers, says, "Yes!" I love that.
So that's unusual. He happens to have fallen into existence because he fell into existence, okay, or awareness, or whatever you want to call it, being. I was not. I struggled, okay. I read all the scientific literature, medical literature, psychology, Jungian psychology. I read the Bhagavad Gita, every single translation. I read Rig Veda, I read Yoga Vashishta, I read Kashmir Shaivism, Vedanta, all of that. No, you shouldn't. Your mind will get cluttered.
So at this stage in my life, I also want to know what they said in the past.
Yeah, well, they said what you're saying. I mean, they said exactly what you're saying. But for me, as a person who had been trained to look at things scientifically, it was both a struggle and a need, you know, because reality is not a map. And yet science gives us maps. The Yoga Vishishta gives us a map. Patanjali gives us a map. The Bhagavad Gita gives us a map. Some of us need maps. Okay, if I'm going from here to Boston and you give me a map, a road map or a contour map or a sea map or an air map, and I take the road map and I get to Rhode Island and it works.
Now I get this. I think the reason why I didn't read the maps is, I met someone who was a GPS.
That's good. But GPS is also a map, right?
Sadhguru,
once
I
you
thought you said GPS is the guru positioning system.
Yeah.
It's your turn.
Oh, wow.
So once you use a map and it works for… the map seems valid from here to Rhode Island, then I assume, for me, who's not had this experience of falling into the place of no thought, then I say, you know, if the map is working up to here, maybe it works from here to there as well. So it's a kind of a psychological validation.
There will always be limitation to maps. A map sometimes won't always show you the different stops, the different paths to get there. So, for example, he was looking for a path from wherever he is to Boston. It will show you a direct route, for sure. And sometimes in those maps, they won't show you the changes that have been made. I guess the way I'm trying to relate this is the fact that maps will show you a direct route, but won't show you the experiences of life. And those experiences of life is the different kinds of stops that you can go to as you're traveling this path. Stopping over at a mall is an experience of life. The map sometimes won't show that, depending how old the map is. But there are things in the map, there are things not in the map that you can experience. Wait, did I say that correctly? Yeah. So again, stopping over somewhere like a forest area, and the map will show a forest area, but it won't show you what kind of experience you can have there. And I think that's what maybe they're trying to talk about. Because the map will show you a mall, but it cannot show you the fun that you can have there. It can tell you there's an arcade there, it can tell you there's a clothing store, it can tell you there's a bookstore, but not the experience of that. A map can only show you the way, to a certain way, but not the experiences of life. I don't know if that's a deep meaning or if that's just complete crap that just came out of my mouth.
And I'll just stop in a moment, but for the last 10 years at our center, when we teach people to sit in reflection, contemplative self-inquiry, or transcendence, or take them through what we call the wheel of awareness, vipassana, or body awareness, or awareness inside the body, or awareness of mental space, we've been doing it now for 25 years. But last 5-10 years, we've been able to look at the brain, we've been able to look at gene expression, we've been able to look at cell markers of aging, telomerase, telomere length, we've been able to look at what are called inflammatory markers. In other words, everything that's happening in the body at a biological cell level. 23,000 genes, 3.3 million bacterial genes. Actually, your body is more bacteria than it is human cells, the microbiome. So we're looking at those genes, and then we're looking at what is called the epigenome, which is the shell of proteins outside the genome, and how these work together. And what we are finding is remarkable. You know, in the beginning, nobody would believe us, but now we have collaborations with Harvard, UCSF, UCSD, Scripps, with digital technology, with Duke University, with Mount Sinai. We can look at a blood sample, and we can tell you, just by looking at the blood sample and the gene expression, if you're experiencing samadhi occasionally or not, if your mind is quiet or not, if you're falling into the place where he
Even
has…
whether our parents experience this.
Parents too. In fact, the epigenetic shows that your experiences now, which are not in your brain, by the way. Everybody says, my experience is in my brain. It's not in your brain. Your experiences are not in your body. Your experiences are in a non-local consciousness, which is not in space-time. But whatever, that's a whole different discussion. But we can now, in fact, our collaborator, and this is a joke actually, but it tell you where science is. One of our collaborators, who's Eric Schott here at Mount Sinai, he does genomic expression, he does RNA transcription, he looks at what is called the transcriptome. And he showed a slide. He says this is a genetic signature of people who are experiencing samadhi. And these are people that he had studied at our center. So somebody asked him in the audience, they said, Dr. Schott, do you meditate? He said, no. He says, are you going to learn? He said, no. He said, but you just showed us the signature, the genetic signature of somebody who does. He says, yeah, but I'll figure out how to make a drug out of this.
Oh, man.
So what Deepak is saying is, if you are children or brats, it's you.
Yes, it is you. It is you. 7 generations. You know, in Hawaii they have these temples and cow farms. If a cow has been zapped electrically, the next generation of cows will not go to the fence. They already know it's electrical and they might get shocked.
That's generally speaking, I thought they're raised together so that they can witness it, or the information is also passed down by the parents generally. That'd be weird if it's passed down genetically.
Okay, then the following generation. Now, people have done experiments right here where you take mice and you have them smell wintergreen, which is a very pleasant smell. Then they get mild electrical shocks. The next 7 generations of mice will be scared by smelling wintergreen. So
I have to look that up. And that's assuming that when they give birth, that the mice children are not, or should I say, have not seen that occur. So, for example, like they train adult mice with that scent and they get shocked. And then they remove that scent. The mice children gets born, but never sees or smells that scent, nor have they seen the parents get shocked or smell the scent. But then, say 6 generations down the line, then they introduce that experiment again. If the mice knows that after, say, that experiment not being done for 5 or 6 generations, and then the 6th generation itself experiences that smell and then runs away from it, wow. Because again, the first generation parents experiences the scent, smell, and the shock. They remove that experiment, 5 generations down, they reintroduce that experiment, meaning that generation 2, 3, 4 have not experienced the minty smell and the shock, and then the 6th generation they reintroduce that and it happens. That is amazing. That would be, I definitely gotta see that.
this is the first window that's opening into what we call sanskaras or vasanas. You know, you have 2 identical twins and they have the same genome. In fact, exactly the same genome. But they're not the same people, right? They have different, mother will tell you that they have different personalities. Where is the seat of this personality? Where is it coming from? This is why science opens the window to what people already knew.
I'll say there was actually, I don't, again, definitely verify this. Mr. Ballin reported triplets who were separated at birth and given to, one triplet was given to like a rich family, one a middle of the ground type family, they're not rich nor poor, and then one to a poor family. They end up having the exact same tendencies, speech pattern, everything was basically alike. There were some differences though, but generally speaking, they completed each other's sentences. So that's weird how what he said contradicted that.
Actually, in our tradition.
And it's interesting that...
Oh, I'm going to pause right here because actually I'm going way over time and I don't think I have enough time. The next part's going to be short. But anyways, that's at least the first part of my reaction to ancient wisdom in modern times, Deepak Chopra and Sadhguru. If you like my content, please consider subscribing, thumbs up, thumbs down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid.